As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 6 of season 11, and today we are finishing up, finally, after all these seasons, Miracle Workers. Now, as you know, this series was only 4 seasons long, but I have taken 11 series to get here, so we can see who the disorganised one is here. Evidently me. But I'm so happy to get here, and I'm so happy to go through the final 3 episodes of this show, because it's been brilliant so far. Like I said before, I forgot how good it was, even though it was very different from what I expected. It's just been so funny, and it's such a good show to watch again. So I'm going to get back into it. I'm going to enjoy the final 3 episodes, and I'm glad you're here for the journey. But I think we should just get into it. So, this is Miracle Workers, the final season, season 4, the final episodes 8 to 10. Episode 8, Children of Women. Now, there's a character in this called Dr. Crazy Eyes, or Dr. Crazy Brain, that's it, Dr. Crazy Brain, who is an odd character to say the least, but we start off with him. Freya and Sid have actually gone to see him because Freya has been feeling ill in the mornings and has been throwing up a little bit and has been feeling a little bit off, let's say. Of course, we all know before he even does the scan, she's going to be pregnant because, well, it's that domesticity again, isn't it? We've been discovering this throughout the whole season, that any time that I suppose you'd call it a regular, normal domestic life has come up, Freya has been in the middle of it. And, of course, she's been trying to get away from it as much as possible, but now she's got the biggest element of a domestic life, a child. It turns out, however, because of the nuclear war that had happened, they weren't sure whether they'd be able to ever have kids, but here is proof of that. And so for now, Freya just wants it to be between the two of them because, well, she doesn't want a lot of fuss and she's unsure of how to take this right now. Again, like I've said, she's been fighting against this whole domestic setup for a long time now, and this is kind of the last puzzle piece. So she is just trying to put it off as much as possible. Sid, however, is stoked, which from a fatherly point of view is, I wouldn't say odd, but a little bit odd. And I'm going to generalise here, it's more that the woman would be more excited, especially when it's the child growing within them, that they would feel more connected from pretty much the get-go, whereas the man always seems to be disconnected up until the point that baby's in his arms, and then, that is it for him. And I'm not the only one who's generalised on that point. I'm sure that's out there everywhere. But generally, women feel closer to the child, unless they're in a situation like Freya where it's the last thing that she really wants right now. And so she asks Sid to just keep the news to himself for now, and then later on down the line, they can start telling people. Obviously, they're going to have to start telling people at some point because she's going to start showing. Sid goes to work and he speaks with Morris. Morris tells him basically that Freya and Morris should go out that night and should get absolutely obliterated. But obviously, Sid can't tell him anything about what's going on. He's promised Freya. But the more that Morris pushes for an answer, Sid ends up breaking and telling him exactly what's gone on. Morris is stoked for Sid and tells him that they're going to have to do something. They're going to have some sort of party and probably a baby shower. And so now Sid has to trick Freya into going to this baby shower, and when he does, it turns into a bit of a nightmare situation. Because when they get there, as Freya and Sid walk in, they actually see Morris stood in a red cloak with a bunch of black cloaked people stood around him. That's not an easy phrase to say, but it seems a bit like a cult. And as they bring them in and start to talk about the baby and naming and, giving gifts and all that kind of stuff, Sid is super excited. He doesn't see any problem with any of this. But of course, Freya does. She's obviously taken it from the part of a woman. And it seems that any time that Sid is mentioned, he is mentioned in reverence and kind of joy, and he's done a great thing, whereas she sees it as, this is going to be it for the rest of my life now. This is the chore. This isn't going to be the joy that it should be. And she sees that Sid is going to be able to get away with a lot of things, whereas she is going to be scrutinised throughout her pregnancy and beyond to look after this child, whereas Sid will be seen as the breadwinner, or as they put it, watching the fort. So she is pissed off with this because obviously she has been this warlord for so long, because she's had this life of adventure and danger and just tried to enjoy it as best she could up to this point. And now she feels like she's just getting dragged further and further into this life. However, when Sid sees how Freya is and tells everyone that they're going to have to leave because, Freya's feeling a bit off. As they try to leave, Sid stops them and tells them he wants to touch the belly, which is something that I find weird. And okay, I'm a guy, and, it would be weird if I went around touching women's stomachs. But I think in a general sense, you shouldn't be touching even a pregnant woman's belly, unless, they are comfortable being around you and having you do that. And in this case, obviously, it's a bunch of people she doesn't know, and they want to all touch her belly, and it's quite creepy. It's quite a creepy practice in public. Like I say, unless you know that person and that person is comfortable with you doing that, nobody should be doing that to anybody. And so Sid realises that they're in trouble because they're basically saying that this child is going to be theirs now. And so he and Freya come up with a plan on the fly just to get Freya away from this. And this plan involves Sid dressing up as Freya and Freya dressing up as Sid. And when Freya is found by Morris, Morris starts to comment on her as Sid. And basically says, where's that wife of yours? And we really wanted to touch her belly and this, that and the other. And thinks that he is addressing Sid when he's actually addressing Freya with a really bad makeup job on her face to actually show that she's got stubble. But she puts on this ridiculous accent and tries to get away with being Sid. And she does, because Morris is a fucking idiot. But then he starts to comment about how good looking she is and whether he's actually started to fancy Sid. And yeah, it's a weird and very creepy episode. But it's just showing how crazy this community has now got around this baby. Ty and Scraps end up going on an adventure of their own because, like I've said, Ty is basically a Terminator. And we see that more in this episode when he actually goes back to the past and goes back to 2023. I think that's when this series actually aired. So it was in line with the times. But when they got back, Ty basically tells Scraps that this is all he ever does. This is basically his job. He goes back in time and he kills this same guy day in, day out. And so Scraps says, look, if that's all you ever do and that is your day in, day out, let's do something fun while we're here. And so they end up doing an escape room. Now, I said before, I've done an escape room. They are fun. They are daft. But this one was apparently the easiest one. This one was for the kids, and these two really struggled with it. And let's not forget, Ty is actually a super sophisticated robot from the future, and he was struggling with some of the most simple things. But eventually they end up getting it done, and they feel a sense of achievement when they walk out. However, the target that Ty was meant to be killing on that day has discovered his time machine. He walks into it and gets taken to the future. And so, going into the final 2 episodes, they're going to have to deal with this guy who is said to bring on the war. He's basically the John Connor from the Terminator series. How Ty and Scraps actually get back to the future is ridiculous, because they just turn up in a taxi, and it's called a time taxi, and it's fucking stupid. But they do make a comment about watching the late night shows in the cab, and to be honest, that's one thing I do like about American TV. The late night shows are great and so funny, and it's such a shame about Colbert going, but do you know what? I just love watching him doing his thing right now, because he is absolutely killing it. But let's find out what this John Connor character is actually going to do, because he is now in the future. Episode 9, John Christ. So I think we'll start with Ty for this one. And after his fuck up, basically bringing, well, we now know the name of the guy, John Christ, to the future. And the fact that he's basically brought the revolution. He goes off to the Neural Net headquarters, which is the company that basically created the robots and is trying to take over. They are pissed off with him for what he's done, and they decide that they are actually going to replace him with a more leaner, meaner machine. But he says that he can match the skills of any of these machines. And he is told that he must prove it by actually going into a competition with them. And it ends up being very similar to America's Next Top Model. It's actually called Neural Net's Next Top Model. So they do a bunch of challenges. At one point they do a bikini contest. And they're basically competing to see who is the next top model. But Ty's gutted by this, because he is basically just there as a laughingstock. He's one of the older machines, and he really can't keep up with the competition. And it's because of his connection to the humans. His job is there to actually kill the humans, but because he's gotten so close to Freya over all this time, he just cannot let go. Once he feels like he can't actually continue in the competition anymore and decides to leave, he calls Freya. And this is the first time that he actually hears of what's happened, because he is a voice message for Freya's messaging service, and it is basically Sid saying that he and Freya can't come to the phone, and neither can the baby, because, well, it's still growing in Mummy's tummy. And after all this time of just letting things slide with Freya, where it was kind of, okay, she's not going to come out with me anymore. Okay, she doesn't want to do this with me anymore. Okay, she's not going to be where I need her to be when, we're going to hang out. To this final betrayal, that she's finally ended up pregnant and not even told her best friend, and he's had to find out this way at possibly his lowest moment. And he knows now what he has to do. He has a job to do, and that is to take over. Freya, however, ends up going out with Scraps for the day. Mainly because Scraps has been told by Sid that they're going to have a baby. And the whole time that Sid is actually trying to tell him this news, someone is blowing a dog whistle, and only he can hear it. So he ends up running out into the street and running out to where the noise is coming from. He finds Freya stood on the top of a massive vehicle, and she basically tells him, "We're going on an adventure." They end up getting the gang back together, and they basically go war dogging. Not in that way, that sounds really weird. That sounds like something you do between Yorkshire and Manchester, between a Yorkshire and a Manc. A little bit weird. Anyway, they are going out for this one last hurrah, as they put it. It turns out that Scraps has actually organised something for her, and when they get to this event, she's a little underwhelmed by it. But then it turns out that he's actually organised a gang war. When he calls out for everyone and a bunch of people walk out, she realises that this is going to be quite fun. Throughout the whole thing, though, Freya's just kind of contemplating things. Even when one of the gang members comes up to her and starts insulting her and telling her they're going to basically take her down, she's uninterested. She's not bothered by any of this. It's not the life she wants to lead anymore. She's realised that there are more important things in life now, and that maybe this whole journey of domesticity had actually done something for her. Throughout, she's been fighting it, but now she realises that that is the way she wants to live. She tells Scraps that this probably isn't the thing that she wanted to do, but it's at this point that across the car park that they're stood in, someone starts eyeing Freya up, and literally eyeing her up because he's got an eye patch. It's very Escape from New York with Kurt Russell. So he ends up coming over and he basically tells her that they can go someplace private and just absolutely go to town on each other, but they're basically going to fight. They do, and they head into this warehouse, and Freya takes this guy out very quickly, in all fairness. But then just as he's about to die, he says something about his kids, and Freya realises that they have now something in common, and they begin to talk, and he actually comforts her and tells her that as crazy as all this is, do you know something? It's going to be the best time of your life. And I know I give kids a lot of shit on this podcast when it comes to, people having kids and what have you. It's not for me. It's not really my thing. I'm so pleased that I've never had them and will never have them. But I understand the need to. And it's nice to see that Freya is actually embracing this now as something that is good for her. Because maybe she can leave her life of war dogging behind her, or warlording behind her, and just do this alternate life that she never thought she'd have for herself. And so when Scraps finds out that she's happy about this now, he tells her, well, I'm not mad. I'm just jealous that I'm going to have to share an amazing mom with someone else. But he knows as well as she does that she's going to be great at this. Sid, however, is on the opposite side to what Ty had to deal with. Ty had to deal with the robot side of this, or the cybernetic side of this, whereas Sid is actually having to deal with the human side of this coming apocalypse. Because the man, John Christ, who is the leader of this resistance, has stayed in town. They've set up some sort of commune within town, and it's a little bit like hippies versus squares, I suppose is probably the best way to put it. And John Christ is basically saying that Sid is a square. Sid doesn't want to be that. He doesn't want to be this uptight person. He tells him, look, I used to be where you are. I've done more in this district than most when it comes to actually helping people out and being this rebel. But when he gets called a square, it turns something in him, and he decides to join the pack for a while. Even when Morris comes out and starts degrading him and saying, look, what are you doing with these people? Like, why are you hanging out with them? Come back to work and I'll forget about all of this. It's then that Sid tells John that he's just working for Morris so he can bring them down from the inside. He's not all about working for the man. He is just the same old Sid that he used to be. And that very night, John challenges him to be that rebel again. They end up walking into Morris's offices, and John tells him that they're going to blow it up, even though Sid just thought they were going to prank Morris. Turns out, though, that Morris is already there, and he ends up getting tied up. Sid stands with him to watch him and says, look, I didn't want to be known as the man. I didn't want to be known as a square. So I did what they wanted me to do. But Morris tells him, look, you've got a job. You've got a place to live. You've got a kid on the way. If that's what people consider as being square or being the man or whatever pejorative they want to put on it, then it sounds pretty cool in all fairness. So why are you so concerned with that label? Why are you so concerned with what they think of you when actually what you're doing is pretty fucking cool? And it's then that Sid realises that he needs a way out of this. And Morris tells him exactly how to do it. And they end up calling the cops on John and the rest of his crew. So going into this final episode, with everything going the way that it should do, it seems we have John Christ, the actual saviour of the humans against the robots, being put in jail. We've got Ty, who is meant to be this all-killing robot and is meant to be going against the humans. He now hates all humans because of something that Freya did. And, of course, Freya and Sid are about to have a kid together. So anything could happen in this last episode, and I cannot wait to watch it with you guys. And finally, episode 10, The End. So there is a robot army now marching towards Boomtown, and they all look like Ty. And so Sid realizes that the only way that they can actually survive this is to get John Christ out of prison and actually get him to help with the revolution. At this point, the townsfolk come together and start to barricade the town. They're all gearing up for a war, and it turns out that the person who gives the most rousing speech is actually Linda, the HOA president. She tells the town that they need to stand strong and they need to stand together and that they will get through this. And just at that point, the walls are breached. John Christ has actually been given a computer, and his main job to do throughout this is actually create a satellite link that will take down neural net once and for all, and the robots will cease to exist. Inside the actual battle, Freya is just enjoying herself. She's throwing shapes and throwing hands. She's literally just having the time of her life. And when Ty turns up and confronts her about what she's done, she thinks he's there just to hang out. He, however, punches her through a wall, and she realizes that they're fighting. They talk through their issues, but it's mainly Ty telling him the issues that he's been having with Freya. And it's all bitty stuff. I mean, okay, he breaks up with someone, but the rest of it is just like she hasn't noticed his hair and she hasn't been able to hang out. It's stuff that really shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Okay, it's, stuff that matters to him, but she's had a lot going on in her life. And when she confronts him about this, he realizes how bad he's been towards her. And each time it causes a short circuit within him, and he ends up being split in two. The town now is just being taken over by these Ty clones, and it seems that they don't have a lot of time left. Morris has gone over to the other side and has actually started to suck up to the leader of the Ty clones, and Sid has been told that he needs to give John Christ some time to actually fix this satellite, and Scraps tells him, look, you're going to need to go feral. And basically this involves him removing most of his clothes and running around screaming. And he literally does that. He runs around, he starts beating these robots up, he starts taking them out. But before they realise it, the robots have actually near enough fully taken over. They can no longer handle it anymore, and they head off to find shelter. Once again, Morris flip-flops and takes the side of the humans because he sees people dying that he cares about, and realises that if he's going to go out, he's going to go out with his people. Just as they reach cover, John Christ tells them that he's managed to create the link. But the problem with this guy, he's such a fucking frat bro that he's basically like, hey, I've done this and I'm the best and I'm amazing and blah, 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 blah. But he hasn't done the main thing, which is actually initiate the satellite link. So he's still not taken down neural net, even though he's claiming that he's taken them down. So eventually the leader ends up taking him out. And it turns to the core group to actually send some people out to save the day. And of course, it's always going to be Freya and Sid. And so that's exactly what they do. They head out into this war zone, and with some incredible action and some acrobatics and just their general skill at working as a team, as they always have done, they manage to actually initiate the neural link, and it ends up taking out all the robots. We then cut to a year later, and it seems that they are enjoying the peace that they actually earned. All of them together. Freya has now had their baby, and they've actually started to live their life again properly. It seems the domestic life that she never wanted has really started to suit her. They both settled down really well, and it's a positive end for all of them. Okay, so we've gone the full gambit with this whole show. Especially Freya's character. She didn't want to be domestic, and then she's ended up being not only a homeowner, but part of the HOA, part of the community at large, and she's now a mom. And similar to Sid, his story of being this outcast, and then he is accepted within the town, and he seems to grow on screen while we're watching him. It's such a great story, and it's such a great way to tell it through this sci-fi lens, and all the references to the different types of films. You've got things like Blade in there, you've got things like Terminator, you've got Mad Max, you've got Escape from New York. You've got so many of these incredible franchises that have shaped the genre of sci-fi, mixed all within this. And it just elevates the way that this season actually ran. It always keeps your mind ticking over and making you think about where it's going to go next and what things it's going to reference throughout. It's been a brilliant series to watch, and I enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time. Like I said, I couldn't remember how it went. I don't particularly like the last episode, but I think overall it's, 9 out of 10, which is basically how many episodes I enjoyed out of 10. So, yeah, it was really enjoyable to watch, and I think it wrapped up this particular show really well. And we've gone quite a long way within the show. And so we've gone from being in the realm of the gods to the Middle Ages to the Oregon Trail and now to the future. And like I said, the only show I can really compare it to is something like Blackadder. And yeah, it was just incredible. Such a fun show, so well acted, and I think such a great addition to do on this podcast. And I'm glad that I did watch it on here. I think it's going to be one of those shows that will stand the test of time and can be gone back to every now and again. Because it's just silly and it's just fun. And yeah, I'm sad that it's gone. I think that's what I'm feeling right now about it. I'm sad that it didn't get another series, or it didn't get another couple of series, because I think it deserved it. I think the cast deserved to do something else with this as well. But, they did enough. They did 4 seasons, and some TV shows don't even get that. So I'm thankful for the time that I spent with this show, both times that I've watched it now, and I'm thankful for you guys being here and listening to me ramble on about it. But yeah, I'm done for today. I cannot wait to get into the rest of Dying for Sex, which I'll be covering next week. And then there's Louder Milk and there's Mindhunters to finish as well. So we've got a lot going on, but I'm done for today. So thank you for listening. I hope you're all doing well out there. And until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome, and I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.